Greetings YouTube viewers and fellow Final Fantasy fans. This is Final Fantasy Fan 12 here, and welcome back to Season 1 of Final Fantasy Rules. Now this time we're in Episode 3, we are covering the Red Mage class. Red Mages throughout the Final Fantasy series are a very versatile class, as the one sentence that they are known for, what they're actually known for is the Jack of all trades but master of none. And because they are actually our first ever Battle Mage class that we're actually covering here on the show. So then, while they would carry some traditional weapons that a warrior would wield, though not all of them, especially in terms of armor, they would have much better physical stats than the mages, but their magical stats aren't really a lot better than theirs. As in terms of abilities, in terms of abilities, red mages have the ability to cast black and white magics, though not all of them. And they can't even focus on them completely because they focus on two separate classes at once. Like, they can do healing magic, but their healing magic is not much more effective as a white mage is. Or any effective offensive spells like fire or ice that a black mage would cast, it's not really effective as how a black mage would actually cast those spells. In terms of weapons and armor, red mages can actually wield armor that normal mages can't, and they can only wield a certain amount of weapons, which are mostly swords. Now, in the traditional looks, the traditional red mage attire is always a dashing red attire with a red cape and a feathered hat that supports a white feather sometimes, and but also sporting boots which range either from black to brown. So that's pretty much does it for there. But now, actually more of a dashing class. But now in terms of appearances, the Red Mages made their very first appearances in the first Final Fantasy game, as one of the six classes that you get to pick before starting the game, and they would later turn into the Red Wizard. The Red Mage would later turn to a Red Wizard after retrieving the Rat's Tail to Bahamut at the Castle of Ordeals. In Final Fantasy III, the Red Mage class is obtained in the game after saving the Wind Crystal. In Final Fantasy V, much like Final Fantasy III, not Final Fantasy III, because it's not obtained after the Wind Crystal. It is obtained after the Water Crystal has been shattered. In Final Fantasy VI, Terra Bronford may be an allusion to a Red Mage, in spite of how her physical stats are high. And she is a powerful magic user. In Final Fantasy VII, there's another allusion to a Red Mage, that being Nanaki, otherwise known as Red 13. And once again, even though he doesn't really carry any form of swords for weapons, and his highest physical stat being speed, but you may accept the fact that he is a Red Mage if the letter M is the 13th letter in the alphabet, if that may actually suit that. In Final Fantasy IX, the Red Mage is one of the 6 classes, not Final Fantasy IX, though there is someone that looks like a Red Mage, but is actually not a Red Mage, but is rather a Dragoon. But Final Fantasy XI. In Final Fantasy XI, the Red Mage class is one of the 6 classes available to the player at the beginning of the game. In fact, Arciela and Camlanot from the game are Red Mages. In Final Fantasy XII, which although they are called as a Red Battle Mage, even though Red Mages are Battle Mages, Red Mages are people who are born under the Cancer sign in Final Fantasy XII, the Zodiac Age. In fact, Ash can classify as a red mage, even though she becomes another class sometime later in the sequel. Which we will get to that class sometime later, so what it is. But anyway, so yeah, it's a bit similar, kind of similar to Terra in a way. In Final Fantasy XIII, Claire Farron, otherwise known as Lightning, is a pretty decent candidate for a red mage class, as she starts off with the Commando, Ravager, and Medic, basically as the Warrior, Black Mage, and the White Mage in her section of the Crystarium. And however, she can't perform all three of these functions at once due to the nature of the game with the paradigm shift system. In fact, the Red Mage garb in Lightning Return. And speaking of Final Fantasy XIII, the Red Mage garb in Lightning Returns is obtained at the start of Day 2 from a treasure cube in the Ark. In Final Fantasy XIV, the Red Mage wasn't really available as a class at the start of the game until the Stormblood expansion came out. In fact, one of the characters, here is Alisai Leveler is a red mage, if I'm already saying her name right. In Tactics Advance, and especially in Advance 2, the Red Mage class is a class that is only available to the Viara race. And finally, Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles. More specifically, in My Life as a Dark Lord, the Red Mages are the enemies that invade Mira's tower in order to destroy the crystal in the top floor. So yeah, in terms of appearances, Red Mages, in spite of how iconic Red Mages look, they hardly are given any form of other appearances throughout the series. Because usually whenever there is a Final Fantasy game, the characters would stick to a particular class, but mostly just to serve a role within the story. Which Red Mages we hardly ever see of. Which, even though we do actually see them with some characters, but they're kind of a bit of a rarity now. But other than that about does it for this video. I thank you guys so much for watching. If you like what you saw, click like and subscribe and share with your family and friends, and make sure you ring the notification bell, that way you get notified of my latest videos. And be sure you stay tuned for next week on this channel, as I will wrap up Justice League, the world's greatest superheroes, with Justice League Liberty and Justice. And also, just a week before my birthday, episode 6, which will be episode 6 of Comic Studies, I will be covering Kingdom Come, so be sure you stay tuned for that. And also stay tuned, and also be on the lookout for episode 7 of Comic Studies. As part of Superman's 85th anniversary, I will cover Superman for all seasons, and it's going to be quite the doozy. And stay tuned for this show. And for this show, what I will do next for the show is I will be covering the Monk class. So be sure you stay tuned for that. It will be soon. And once again, thank you guys so much for watching. This is Final Fantasy Fan 12 signing off, and remember, may the light forever shine upon us.